So saying that two angles add up to 180, what does that mean that we have? Anyone? Two angles that add up to 90, I call complementary angles. Two angles that add up to 180, I call
Supplementary angles?
Supplementary angles, yeah. So this is telling you that 3 and 4 are supplementary. It's just not using the word supplementary. It's showing you through an equation that 3 and 4 add up to 180. And so if I look at 3 and 4, 3 and 4 are same side interior angles. So if they're supplementary, then J and K are parallel. 5 and 3. So now if I look at 3 compared to 5, what type of angles are 3 and 5? What's their angle relationship? Corresponding. So they're on the same side, but one's inside and one's an exterior angle. So absolutely that works. Corresponding angles, then parallel. So that's J and K. And then last, it gives us 6 and 7. Are congruent. So 6 and 7 are same side interior angles. If I knew that 6 and 7 were supplementary, then I could say that a certain set of lines would be L and M, N would be parallel. But it doesn't tell me that they're supplementary. It tells me that they're congruent. So that doesn't fit our model here. So that we would also say none. And then I wrote if they were equal to 180, then L would be parallel to N. But knowing they're congruent doesn't tell me anything. If I knew that they were congruent and like they were right angles, so that 90 and 90 give me 180, then I could use that. But that's not enough to say lines are parallel. So that was our first set on homework 17. And then the next set gives us this really funky diagram. And you can extend lines. So like if I want to look at this line, the way kind of parallel lines have looked in other diagrams, I can extend it, and I can extend the other lines too if I want to. Be able to look at them the way that maybe other diagrams have looked, that's fine. So same idea, 1 and 3. What type of angle relationship are 1 and 3? There's 1 and 3. What type of angle relationship would 1 and 3 be? What do I have there? It's like I'm a comedian who's bombing up on stage. Come on, what angle relationship does 1 and 3 have? One's inside, one's outside. They're on the same side. What is that called?
Corresponding.
Corresponding. And so we can use corresponding. It's on my list. So I can say they're corresponding, showing these two lines parallel. So here's my transversal that they're on, and they're connected to N and P. So I used line ON, and line PS would be parallel. 1 and 4 would be the alternate interior. So same idea, those would be parallel. When I get to 2 and 5, 2 and 5 flip what lines we'd be talking about, because 2 and 5 are here. So that would be on this transversal, showing me that these lines are parallel. That TS and OR would be parallel. Then it gives us 5 and 3. Now 5 and 3, do they share any relationship? One's in and one's out, but they're on opposite sides. What do you think? No, okay, there's nothing that is one in and one out on opposite sides. That's a none. 4 and 5, though, do have a relationship. They are same side interior, and if same side interior are supplementary, then my lines are parallel. Okay. So then on the back side, you have this algebra stuff. So the way that we know how to set up these equations, let me see, I don't have my notes over here. That little table in your notes that gives you these things are congruent, these things are supplementary. That's going to be like your golden guide as you work through the quiz. So when I look at this first problem, I go, okay, these are alternate interior angles. And if I look at my diagram, I know that they're congruent. And in fact, the diagram in our notes even says if they're congruent, then I set them equal to each other. So 3x plus 10 equals 5x minus 10. Okay, because of this relationship, I know that this is the setup. And then I just solve from there. So subtract 3x, add 10, and divide by 2. On the second example, I look at these angles and I go, well, they're same side interior angles. Same side interior angles, that would be a different setup. They're supplementary, which means that the first angle plus the second angle has to add up to 180. So there's kind of two different setups. Either the angles are equal to each other or the angles are equal to 180. And I subtract 75 and 3x equals 105. And I divide by 3 and x equals 35. Okay. Same on the last one. Okay, these are same side interior angles, so they're supplementary. The first angle plus the second angle equals 180, or 11x plus 15 equals 180. 11x equals 165. Divide by 11. And x equals, I just had left it as 165. Does 11 go into that at all? Though I had left it as 165 elevenths. 11 would go in, let's see, I think it does. 165 divided by 11 once gives me 55, 5. It goes in 15 times. X equals 15. Okay. So that's the algebra stuff. We've done quite a bit of that, and you had a checkout that had some of that stuff on it. And then we have our proofs. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite these. Now, I will say that you guys have got to participate in order to get better at this. There's nothing that irritates me more than students sitting in a class, not participating or trying, and then when it gets to the quiz, telling me they don't know how to do it. Okay. I've already taken geometry. I don't need to do the proofs. Okay. I know how to do the proofs. You need to know how to do the proofs. Okay. So as we work through this, I should be hearing more people participating because it's a waste of your time to sit here and me tell you the answer. On 3 and 4, the givens and the proofs didn't copy over. So I'm writing them for you now. So if you were not in our class yesterday, then you wouldn't have really been able to get too far on these. So they use the same diagram. So here's my diagram. On number 3, this would be what would be given to us, and this would be what we want to prove. And I'm just going to rewrite the proof. Sometimes I almost don't like the fill in the blank setup. I think it makes things sometimes more confusing. So first I'm going to write the givens. June. So my first given is that J is parallel to K. And sometimes, like how I mark angles, I'll color code that. So J is parallel to K. That's one given. My other given is that 1 is congruent to 3. That's given. So I know I'm going to mark that 1 is congruent to 3. Now, what we want to prove would be that these lines are parallel. And so we have to kind of connect an angle to either 1 or 3 to be able to say that they're parallel. Now, right now, I know that these lines are parallel here. So I can use, for example, 1 and 2 I know would be congruent because on these red lines, these are corresponding angles. Or 3 and 4, but the reason I don't really care about 3 and 4 is because like it's not going to help me connect back to 1 over here. So basically we want to take 1 and link it to something that can also be linked to 3. And so, well, I guess I could do this too. I could do this too and then get to those yellow angles. The way that they have it set up is using 1 and 2. Okay, so the reason I can use 1 and 2 is I know that these lines are parallel. It's given to me. So I know that 1 and 2 are congruent. And this is where the if then come into play, because if my lines are parallel, which we know that they are, it was given to me, then, and I can fill in either alternate interior, alternate exterior, or corresponding. These happen to be corresponding angles. And corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, if parallel, then corresponding angles are congruent. Because I know 1 and 2 are corresponding and these lines are parallel. If 1 is congruent to 3 and 1 is congruent to 2, then what else can I say? What other 2 angles would be congruent?
2 is congruent to 3.
Then 2 would be congruent to 3. So if 1 is congruent to 3 and 1 is also congruent to 2, then angle 2 would be congruent to angle 3. And the best reason that we can give here would be using a special property that starts with a T. Transitive property. I would also take substitution on this step because technically we could say that I'm taking 2 and substituting it in for 1 in my first expression. So transitive or substitution would be fine. Now, the reason we want to say 2 and 3 is because 2 and 3 are what type of angles?
They are congruent.
They are congruent. And in terms of my angle, so is it alternate interior, exterior, or corresponding? Same side, 1 in, 1 out would be corresponding, yeah. So because these are corresponding, so this if then works both ways. So now I can say, okay, I just said those are congruent. That means these lines must be parallel. That's what I wanted to prove all along. L is parallel to N because if corresponding angles are congruent, then parallel. Okay, so I can write this here. If parallel, then angles are congruent, or if some angle relationship is congruent, then parallel. Okay, that if then, that's what you will be seeing on the proofs. On number 4, it's a little bit of a different proof. You should have had givens, J is parallel to K, angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. And again, we want to prove L is parallel to N. I'll redraw. Here's L, N, J, K. 2, 6, 1, 5, 3, 4. Okay, where do I always start my proofs? What am I going to write first? I'll kind of copy what they have here, the given, yeah. So they have 2 blanks on here, which we would have filled in. J is parallel to K, given. And I'm going to just label that. So J is parallel to K, just kind of give myself a visual that those lines we know are parallel. Now on the blanks here, which is why they're giving it to you, because instead of writing it up above, they're filling it in the blank down here. They actually list something next before the next given. They say 3 is congruent to 5. Now that has nothing to do with parallel lines. That's just vertical angles. So they're using the fact that it's a fill in the blank proof to also provide you with this piece, which is helpful. Any vertical angles would be congruent always. It has nothing to do with parallel lines, but they're saying, hey, use these vertical angles, it'll help you. Because then with my other given, which is the next step that they have, angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. That's given. Well, if I know that 3 and 5 are congruent, and I know that 1 and 5 are congruent. And then, well, hold on, let's keep going with what they have. And then they also give us that angle 1 is supplementary to angle 6. It's a lot of pieces on this proof. It also tells us 1 and 6 are supplementary. The reason that 1 and 6 are supplementary is because they're same side interior. So again, we can use that if then. Well, if those lines are parallel, and same side interiors are supplementary. And then on 5, it filled in, it said definition of supplementary angles. That's what it had filled in, and it wanted you to write in here. So definition of supplementary angles means it wants us to write that, well, that means that those same side interiors add up to 180. Okay. So then, and so yeah, I don't even know why they gave us this because we don't end up using this with the steps that they provide. So then the next step, they filled in this. They said, well, then the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 6 equals 180. So what did we do there? Looking back at steps, we knew that 1 and 5 were congruent. So all we're doing is what? What did they do from 5 to 6?
Substitution.
Substitution, and they had given you this step. This is, but you had to fill in over here. Substitution. And then they give you the next step, which says angle 5 is supplementary to angle 6, which using their example up above, it's just kind of the backwards of this. Okay, so we're still going to just use definition of supplementary here. Supplementary angles. So why do we care? Well, 5 and 6, those are same side interior, but around these lines. Okay, they're same side interior around L and N. So now it gives us our last step, and it's blank on both sides in your homework. And our last step should always be the prove here, and then I have to give the reason that prove, which is if same side interiors are supplementary, then parallel. Okay. So, and that proof's like way more involved than what you will see on your quiz. So what you're going to do today is your quiz review. Now, I would say this quiz review matches really closely to what our quiz will look like on Friday. So tomorrow in class, I don't think I have anything scheduled except to go over this review. So tomorrow in class, the slide deck's not published yet, but we'll just go over this review. Your only homework Thursday is to prepare yourself for the summative. And so I'm giving you time, like once we go over this tomorrow in class, I'm giving you time to go back, rewatch any videos or watch videos for the first time if you haven't. If you look through your notes packet and you have blanks, like that's your task for tomorrow, is to get all your resources together. Make sure you've checked all your homeworks with the keys that are in classroom, so that when you show up Friday, if you're in the B group, you're ready to take your quiz. The A group of students, I teach at the middle schools and they're A and B. You guys are blue and gold. So the gold group will take it Friday. The blue group will take that same unit quiz on the following Monday, and the remote kids will take it then as well. So listening ears, I am very, very over having to make up quizzes because somebody just doesn't show up when they're supposed to Zoom in. So I'm talking to my remote kiddos. or when this happens and you happen to not be in the building that day, okay, you absolutely need to be zoomed into class on Monday to take your quiz. I'm just going to start giving zeros, okay? I cannot keep giving up hours of the day to watch you Zoom take a quiz. Okay, so when you are scheduled to take a quiz, if you're taking it remotely or you have to Zoom in, you absolutely have to be doing that, okay? The other thing I will say is this is a hard unit and I have a lot of people who haven't watched videos. So I'm gonna let you go early today so that maybe you can get caught up on some of that. But as I said, like I'm feeling a little frustrated right now because I feel like many of you don't know the angle relationships, but you're not participating or watching the videos or completing homework. So I'm going to be just a little cranky about it and say you need to put in a little bit of work before you are emailing me and saying, I'm not ready for the quiz, I don't know what we're doing. Try watching the videos and doing the homework before you throw that out, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Still encourage you to live Zoom into class. Okay, you don't have to, but you do have to watch the video at some point. Tomorrow we'll be going over our review, so it'd be a great day to Zoom in and make sure that when you Zoom in, you can always use the chat. It'll highlight for me so I know that you have a question. I do have a Bluetooth headset now, but it hasn't been working correctly. I think I'll try again tomorrow in class so that I can hear you in my ear if you're remote for any questions that you have. Okay, so I'm going to